Yes, welcome to Box Angeles. A new year, new episodes, and I'm still the same old host, Mike Boxelder. Thank you for coming and listening to the show. It really means a lot to me. It really means a lot. I got to do a little housekeeping for the new year. I got a couple people to shout out on the Patreon. David Ashton and Jaden S., thank you so much for subscribing. If you want to get all the previous episodes I've posted up there, go to patreon.com/BoxAngeles. We've got a great guest to kick off the new year. This week I'm talking to writer Jason Palmer. Jason works for Fox NFL Sunday. We're in the middle of football season. I got the game on right now. He does the sketches. He writes and directs the sketches on Fox NFL Sunday. If you watch football at all, they're so funny. You probably have seen these before. They're really fun. We talk about that. We talk about his start in writing. He wrote on Dawson's Creek. We talk about his pivot into the Groundlings and the improv scene. This is a really fun conversation. A really great guest to kick off the new year. I think you're going to dig it. That's it. I don't want to waste any more time, you guys. This is a great conversation. Go subscribe to the YouTube channel. Subscribe, follow, like, share with friends. If this means anything to you, like it means to me, please share it. That's it. Happy New Year. Box Angeles forever. Let's go. And without further ado, I give you...
Hey, I'm Jason Palmer.
Hey, Jason.
Hey.
It's so good to meet you.
Thanks.
I feel like we have so many mutual friends.
Probably.
It's crazy. Like, I was just looking at our Instagram before you came in, and we have like 50, hundreds of friends that we share in common. It's crazy.
Yeah, probably. So you're an actor too?
Yeah, I do acting. I did UCB as well. I think you did UCB for a while, so we sort of know all the same improv people, I think.
Yeah, I did UCB and Groundlings, so... Yeah, if I meet actors, we usually have a lot of same people.
Yeah, for sure. I just interviewed Emily Pendergrass.
Yeah, I listened to that one.
And I told her you were coming up next, and she was like, "Oh, I love Jason. He's great.
Yeah,
tell him hi."
she's
so
awesome.
I have to say hi.
Okay.
Cool.
Hello,
well,
Emily.
I would love to kick this off just by getting right into Fox NFL Sunday. That's how I stumbled on you. So every week, Fox NFL Sunday for the football fans, those that aren't football fans, they do sketches on the Terry Bradshaw, Michael Strahan show. Mm-hmm. And I kept seeing UCB people, and I'm like, who is writing these? Terry Bradshaw's not writing these. Who's coming up with this? Yeah. And I reached out to a few people like Dave Tooney, and he's like, oh, it's Jason Palmer. He used to do improv. Yeah. And then I reached out. How did you stumble on that gig? It's so crazy. That show's been going on for so long.
Well, I'll tell you. I was a sitcom writer for like 10 years. And then I was out of work for like a few years. And then I'm in this Facebook group. It's like paid LA TV jobs.
Okay. And
someone I know like posted they were like, hey, this isn't for me, but this is on the Fox website. And it said Fox, NFL on Fox looking for a comedy writer. And I was like, and I'm a huge football fan. So I was like, what is that? What do they need a comedy writer for? So it was literally like send in a resume and any like supporting material you might have. So I just sent in a resume, and I was doing a lot of sketch stuff at UCB at the time and Groundlings and IO, and so I did have like some sports related sketches, and I set them in, and then I like forgot about it. And I remember I was married at the time. I remember telling my wife, I was like, they're not going to hire some random. And then I started going on the internet and looking up, like, what stuff do they do? And like Rob Riggle had like a segment, and
Kimmel before that,
yeah, and then Frank Caliendo, and then I was like, oh, it must be for that. Like, and then I remember telling my ex-wife, I was like, they're not going to hire some outside guy. I was like, they're probably just posting that because they legally have to or something.
Yeah, that sounds about right, honestly.
And then I completely forgot about it. And then one day I got some call from Fox HR, and then they called me in, and they were just verifying all my employment and stuff.
Okay.
And then I think like another 2 weeks went by, and then I had a meeting with the executive producer, and then he just had questions, and then just about my experience and stuff, and they liked that I had been doing sketch comedy because that's exactly what they wanted, and they wanted someone who like could cast these things, and I was like, yeah, I'm doing all that already.
Yeah,
Groundlings and UCB, and then they sent me examples of stuff they were doing. And then they asked me to go home and pitch some ideas, and I took the weekend, and I put a lot of work into it. And then I sent them ideas. Then I had like another interview like a week later, and then I got hired.
That's amazing.
And then they, and then I had no idea what I was doing. I'd never worked in live TV before, and they just like threw me into it. Luckily, they have like a great crew of people that have been doing it for a while, like a great DP and great editors. So those guys really helped me in the beginning. And so there's two comedy segments on that show. Rob Riggle had like a 2-minute segment.
Yep.
And then they had something called the Fox 45, which is a 45-second sketch.
Okay.
And that's what they had me doing.
Yeah. So a couple questions for you to follow up. So from the moment you applied to when you got hired, how much time was that? You made it sound like it was a while.
When I started, it's probably two months, maybe a little more.
Okay. And then was this a position they had previously and you were replacing somebody, or were they determining that they needed to create something?
There was this guy, Bernie Kim, who had worked there forever, and he was doing these short comedy pieces, and he moved on to another show. He still worked there, but he moved on to another show on the network.
Got it.
And then and they were looking, someone to take his spot.
Got it. I had always assumed, and maybe I'm wrong, I thought Riggle and like Kimmel and Caliendo were writing their own stuff. Were they not?
No, they have writers.
Okay.
Well, so I know this because the guy who used to write for Kimmel still works there. So it started as Kimmel's spot,
right?
And 94, I think, and I think he had it to like 2000 or something, and then. So Kimmel would write it when I think cousin Sal would write it with him, and then there was another friend of his who's still at Fox, Jim Bresca, who would write his segments, and then when it was Frank Caliendo, was actually the person who's the executive producer now, was writing them for him.
Oh,
and
interesting.
I'm sure he
pitched in, of course.
I'm sure he would help too, but. And then,
because I'm thinking like Caliendo is such a specific thing to him that I wouldn't imagine a lot of other people can write in his voice like he can.
Yeah, I think this person at Fox wrote most of the stuff. I'm sure he had input, but and then when it was Rob Riggle, he had a couple.
That makes
writers.
sense. Yeah. But you just said you're not used to live TV, but everything you're filming though is pre-recorded. You said on Friday, I think, right? So what do you mean I wasn't prepared for live TV? I
would have to go in on Sundays, and I was like
tough.
Literally no one I hate to say this, but no one helped me at all.
Oh, interesting.
And then so they
trial by fire.
I was in my first day the show was on Sunday mornings. In my first week of work, somebody mentioned coming in on the weekends, and I was like, wait, what? I was like, we have to work weekends? And they're like, yeah, that's when the show is. And I was like, I didn't think I had to be here when the show aired.
I would agree with you. I thought that was the case, honestly.
So literally, I had started the job before I realized, I got to come in on weekends. And then,
that's funny.
So, I was in the control room on Sundays, and this live show's going on, and it's craziness in the control room, and I don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
And like, I had worked before that mostly as a writer. I had directed some stuff and mostly my own stuff, but now I was like really heavily involved in the post-production process and all that stuff. It's mostly. I wasn't used to all that.
But what are you doing specifically on a Sunday? Are you doing anything? Are you feeding them jokes or anything in the real time?
Technically, yeah, they would want you to do that, but I never really did. And then I wouldn't do a whole lot on Sundays, to be honest. What I used to do is, do you watch football?
Oh yeah, of course.
So if you're ever watching the games on Fox, it'll be like 2 minutes ago before the half. And the announcers will go, let's go to Kurt Menefee and see what's coming up on the Verizon halftime.
Sure.
And they'll cut to Kurt Menefee and it'll be like, coming up on the Verizon halftime, we'll talk about this game. They wanted to start making those a little funny.
Of course, yeah.
So they were having me do those.
Oh, cool.
Which was hard because they're 15 seconds and you got to get information out and somehow make them funny. And they were it was very stressful. And I would have to do those because you would film them like 20 minutes before they go on air.
Yeah.
Because you'd want to like put in information that we'll talk about that fumble that happened or something.
Right.
And then it's very stressful because you're filming them like 20 minutes before it goes on air, and then you're using these hosts who are wanting to watch the game, so they're kind of like you're kind of having to pull them away. And then I was so bad at doing those that they took me off.
That's hilarious. So are you still going in on Sundays?
I don't have so then COVID and going in. I'm gonna be honest. Going in on Sundays was the worst part of my job.
That's funny.
I'd be there like 6 a.m. in the morning.
Yeah.
And then I loved the job. I always said this would be the best job in the world if I didn't have to come in on Sundays. And then when COVID happened, they started limiting who had to come into work. And they were like, to me, they're like, we'll get someone else to do those things. Like, you don't have to come in Sundays anymore. And then COVID ended, and no one told me to start coming back in. I went in this last Sunday, but I didn't. They don't ask me to. I just went in because it's kind of fun to see these things air at work and see people's reaction to them. Because usually it's just me sitting at home watching them air, and I don't know how.
And you wonder how it goes. Yeah. Your one this Sunday was very good, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
Better than normal, I felt like. You really hit it this weekend. Like it was
really?
like bam, 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 bam. Funny,
I feel like
funny.
this was just an average one this week.
Oh, really? I thought it was great.
Oh, thanks.
Yeah, it was really good.
So yeah, it's I'll be honest, when I got this job, I was like, oh, this is just gonna be a temporary job for me.
And that was 2012?
No, like 2016.
Okay.
So this is my 7th season.
That's amazing.
And then they keep me on after football, and I do a lot of random stuff. Like every NASCAR becomes the big thing there after football.
Yeah.
Sometimes I will write like some NASCAR just bits for the hosts, but I don't have to produce those or shoot those. And then just a lot of random stuff. And but yeah, when I started, I thought it was going to be like a temporary job for me, like a 1-year job. And it's a really great job.
Isn't that funny how that works out?
Yeah.
Did you know? So you mentioned that they asked you to cast these things in the interview process. Did you know you were going to be directing them? Because you're directing all the sketches too, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
They told me I'd be. They were like, we need someone who can write, direct, and produce these things and cast them. And I was like, I think this is a big part of how I got the job. I was like, well, I do that already.
Right.
I do that at the Groundlings at UCB. I put the wardrobe together myself.
Yeah.
I remember telling, and they were like, yeah, sometimes we need someone who to put together the wardrobe. Right. Because these things, there's not a big budget for them. And then, funny story is, so yeah, there was like no budget for these things, and so I was coming up with ideas. The first year and a half I had that job, no one told me I could build a set. So if you watch every sketch I have, it's like in a hallway at work, in an office, and it's like a hallway office, or like
the parking lot.
I'd go to someone's house, sometimes film in a bedroom, something. Yeah, parking lot we would do, like a tailgate scene behind our building. And I had all these ideas for other stuff, but I was like, oh, you'd have to build a set. I can't do those. And then one time, that guy Bernie, I was telling you, and I was like, you have this great idea for... I was into this job a year and a half. I was like, it takes place in a doctor's office, but we can't do that. And he's like, why not? I was like, well, how do I film doctors? He's like, just build one. I was like, I could build a set? And he was like, yeah. And I went and asked like the other guy, production. I was like, I could build a set for one? They're like, yeah. And I was like, it's like a year and a half into this. So then I was like, it just opened up a whole new world.
Oh, yeah.
I start writing all this other stuff. And then, so I did those Fox 45s, they call them, for 4 years. And then Rob Riggle moved on.
Right.
He was doing the 2-minute sketches, the longer ones. And then, I don't know, they didn't want to get like, they've always had like a name face, and they didn't want to do that anymore. And they were like, hey, we just want to make like regular kind of like sketches you would see on Saturday Night Live. And they were like, can you start doing the 2-minute ones? Yeah. And I said, yeah, I could do those. And then, so then I was like 4 years ago. So now I do those longer 2-minute ones that are like in the place. It's in the same segment. Yeah. Like Kimmel and Riggle used to do.
And you do shorter ones. So what are you responsible for every week? The 45 and the 2? Is that, or just the 2?
There's another guy, Norm Souza, who now does the Fox 45s. But I do the 2-minute ones now. So and they're like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. So pretty much every week I have to make one of those.
Right. So a couple days writing, a couple days producing, filming, and then editing another day, basically?
When I was doing the 45-second ones, I was writing them all myself. There was no one to bounce ideas off
That's brutal.
It was really brutal. I would send them to my friends, my writer friends, and be like, hey, do you mind looking at this? And I felt really bad because they're doing it for free.
Yeah.
And then, so when I started doing the 2-minute ones, they asked me, they're like, well, what would you need to start doing that? I said, it'd be helpful if I could have a couple part-time writers.
Yeah.
So they let me hire a couple people. So I hired a couple sketch friends I knew who helped me write it. So yeah, we start pitching ideas Sunday night, Mondays. Then usually an idea will get approved Tuesday and we write it Tuesday, Wednesday, and Wednesday, Thursday start putting it together. We shoot usually Friday. I sit with the editor Saturday, and then it airs Sunday.
That's amazing.
So it'll
It's very much like the SNL model.
Yes,
that's very cool.
So we'll shoot these, less than 48 hours before they're on air.
Yeah. And you mentioned, though, you said you didn't know if they were funny, but they are getting approved. They weren't just letting you do them. There's an executive producer that's saying this is good.
Yes. Okay. When I was doing the 45-second ones, there was an executive producer I would pitch ideas to, and he was pretty just yeah, do this one. And I would do it, and then I would just kind of do it, and then now that guy I mentioned, Bernie Kim, he's come back to the show, and we work together, and he helps with the ideas a lot too now. So I have a lot more help now because I'm doing the longer ones. I have a couple writers I use, and then. Yeah.
Sounds way more formal now.
Yeah, it is. And then since I started there, these comedy sketches, they've kind of gotten, well, I don't know if I'll say bigger, because the Rob Riggle ones used to be really big. Yeah. They would do some elaborate stuff. But they're more involved. We have a couple writers on the Fox 45, and yeah.
Do the hosts not see them until they air? Because they have genuine laughs, it seems like, after watching them.
Yeah, no, they don't.
That's great.
The executive producer, Bill Richards, he likes to keep it that way.
That's cool. That's smart.
He doesn't even like other producers knowing what it is.
Yeah.
So when it airs on TV, and everyone at work I'd say 90% of the people at work are seeing it for the first time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because he wants honest reactions from the hosts, and sometimes they're very honest.
I know.
Because there's times you'll come back and they'll be like, well, you can't win them all. And I'll be like, I remember the first time that happened when I was working there, I was mortified. I was like, oh my God. And then, yeah, it's fun because it's their real honest reaction on TV.
Yeah, that's really cool. That's a benefit to going in on Sunday, I feel like. You can see the response to it.
Yeah.
You mentioned it's a pretty good gig. I was going to ask you, football season's August to late January. Mm-hmm. Is this covering you for the entire year because you're still doing those NASCAR stuffs too? Is this your year-long job?
Mm-hmm. I'm a full-time employee there.
Oh, amazing.
So when my job slows up a lot after football. During football, it's a pretty intense job. I mean, it's it can be a 7-day-a-week job.
Yeah.
And I can't really go anywhere during the football season, and then my schedule opens up a lot after football ends.
But you're still getting a salary during that time, amazing.
Yeah, there's a lot of people there. Yeah, I think their workload goes down after football.
Yeah.
Football's the big money maker there. And then, we have this football seminar in the summer where all the producers and hosts gather, and I have to make some comedy sketches for that seminar. And, there's more work than you think, but it's not as intense as when I usually don't have to produce anything for air.
Yeah. Well, I just mean it's awesome that can survive you all year. Like a lot of people, if they get a writing gig for 6 months, they need to find something else for the other 6 months, and that can be a challenge when you only have a finite window before football starts up again. So it sounds like it's a great position you're in, coming from a advertisement on the Fox website for a writer. That's really cool.
It is.
When you said that, it reminded me of Amy Rhodes. You might not know her. She wrote on Ellen. She got that job writing on Ellen via Craigslist. Isn't that crazy?
They had an ad for a writer
looking for a
Ellen
comedy writer. Well, they didn't advertise it was Ellen. They just said comedy writer wanted
for her talk show.
Yes.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because it's still crazy.
Yeah. But because this isn't a Writers Guild job.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay.
So I guess you can look for writers that way. But yeah, this was a job up on the Fox website.
That's fat. So it's not WGA at all?
No.
Interesting.
Yeah, we're a SAG show, so the actors we use are SAG. But no, it's not a Writers Guild.
Interesting
job. So what I love about this job is the stability of it.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was a sitcom writer, there was jobs I had. I had a job for a year once that was 6-week contracts. So I had the job for a year, but I never knew past 6 weeks.
Right, that's what I was.
Am I working past 6 weeks? The 6 weeks be up. They renew you. So there was always that anxiety of even when I worked on some popular shows. Even some popular shows, you were kind of like, "Are we coming back or not?" And before this, the longest job I ever had was 4 years, and I've been on this job for 7 years.
That's amazing. Where are you from originally?
I'm from here, the
LA
suburbs.
Area? Okay.
Inland Empire, I guess they call it. The Diamond Bar, if you know where that is.
Yeah, oh yeah. Deep out there.
Yeah, I grew up there.
Did you aspire to write as a kid?
No. I went to Loyola Marymount, and I studied...
Beautiful school.
Yeah, it is a great school. And I was studying film production there.
Okay.
When I was in school, I thought I wanted to make movies, and I still would. But I'll tell you, so I was in film school. My senior year... I would write. I remember I would write funny newsletters and send them to my friends. So I liked writing, and I had written a screenplay, and I thought I wanted to direct movies. And then when I was my senior year, I had an internship class
in high school or college.
College at Loyola Marymount, and you had to secure an internship on your own. And I remember there was this internship board, and I think I called some people. And it was all these terrible internships. I got these. Low-level production companies that you never heard of.
Yeah.
We're just looking for free labor. And then I kind of hate telling the story because it makes it sound like I had some in, but my cousin, do you know who the actress Leah Thompson is?
Yeah.
She's the mom in Back to the Future.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
So she used to have I went to college in the 90s. So she used to have a show called Caroline in the City.
Yes.
On NBC.
Yep.
My cousin is married. Grew up with her.
Okay.
And ended up marrying her brother.
Got it.
So
you're a Nepo friend.
See, I hate telling this story because I have a friend, Mike Trahey, who always gives me shit about that. Am I allowed to cuss?
Yeah.
And then
fuck Mike.
But I
fuck your friend Mike.
I had met Leah a few times, at my cousin's wedding, but I didn't really know her. And then I called my cousin, and I was like, "Hey," "do you know if Leah would need an intern on her TV show?" And they got me an internship on that TV show. It was amazing. And I didn't watch much TV. I didn't even watch that show.
Sure.
And then
I don't think you were the target demo. Probably.
Yeah. And then I hated TV. I was one of those guys who scoffed at TV. There was TV majors at college, and I would scoff at those. And then
I'm just picturing the film department and TV department at Loyola feuding in the lunch cafeteria.
So I showed up to this internship, and they made me the set intern, which was amazing. I was in college and knew nothing about anything. And suddenly I'm on the set of this NBC show, and then I I think people thought I was related to Leah Thompson because someone like introduced me like as Leah Thompson's cousin or something. So these people treated me like so well. Like I don't think they would treat most normal interns like this. Like they would like. I was supposed to go in there like one day a week, and I would end up going there for like 5 days a week because I just loved it so much.
Yeah, all the positive affirmation.
But they would be like, I was in college. They would be like, "Hey, this actor isn't here today. Can you read this during rehearsals?" And I'm like, "Are you fucking kidding me?"
That's amazing.
Yeah, and they were having me do like crazy stuff, and they treat these people like were so fucking nice to me. Like I look back now, and I'm like, it wasn't till later I'm like, they must have. I was like, that's not normal to like they were letting me do all sorts of like just stuff I think you wouldn't normally let an intern do because I think people thought I was related to her, but I didn't really barely knew her.
Don't apologize for that. I think you're fine. Honestly, that.
So they would like I don't know if you know how sitcoms work, but they rehearse and then the network executives would come in and they'd have these network run-throughs.
Yep.
So I'd been working on the show a few months. It was the last week of the show. And I was like real comfortable there because everyone was so nice to me. And they would have me sometimes like, oh, we have a bar scene. Hey, Jason, go sit in the back, just background for this network run through. And they did a network run through, and there was no joke at the end of the scene. And I stood up as the background guy and said a joke.
Oh my God!
I look back now, I'm like, how did I have the balls to do that?
That's brash.
And all the network executives like laughed. And then I didn't think anything of it. And then after this guy Marco Panett, he has a lot of shows. He came up and he's like, "Hey," he's like, "we're gonna write that joke into the script." And I was like, "Oh," and he goes, "Do you want to play it?" And I was like, I was in college. I was like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah." And then, I got this part on TV doing this one line. And I even before that, I was already interested in TV writing because I would see, I knew nothing about how TV worked. These writers would come down, I'd see them pitching jokes and trying to make things funnier. And I'd be in the back and my head would be like, I got a better joke than that. And then I just remember deciding that's what I want to do. I want to write for TV.
That's awesome. From that experience, basically? That's
that
awesome.
became like my whole focus after that.
That's very cool.
I remember my focus was, there's writer's assistants, which are also very hard jobs to get. Anyone will tell you.
Yeah, there's only one per show, yeah.
There's usually a couple, and then they... but I remember that was my goal. I'm gonna become a writer's assistant. I'm gonna become a writer's assistant. And I remember being like, man, if I became a writer's assistant, that'd be like the greatest job in the world. And then... So I focused on that, and I started writing. Like, I just learned the business. You got to write like your own spec script. And then I this is the 90s, so no one was really still using email. You'd fax everything. So I remember going through the Hollywood Creative Directory, which was an actual book at the time.
Okay.
Like no one, there was no like, people were still faxing. No one was like emailing.
Yeah.
And I remember after I graduated, I just went through it and I faxed like every show in the off season, like looking for a PA. And then I ended up getting hired as a PA in the writers' offices of Dawson's Creek.
Amazing.
It was an amazing job. Like I learned I was in the writers. I was just the writers because they filmed in North Carolina.
I was gonna say, yeah.
I worked with some amazing people.
Yeah, wasn't Mike White on that show?
He had just left before I got on there, but he would come in sometimes, and that was like my grad school. But I worked with Greg Berlanti.
Sure, yeah.
But Greg Berlanti was in his second year of a job.
Wow.
He was the story editor there when I started there. Now he's like, one of the biggest producers.
Yeah.
I remember he had this beat up car, and I drove him to the Lexus dealership to get his first new car.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
That's pretty funny.
And I worked with Tom Capanos, who I don't know if you know him. He created Californication. He's was an amazing writer. And they, again, I've been very lucky. They were so awesome to me at this job. They knew I wanted to be a writer assistant, so when one left, I learned that job, became a writer assistant. Ended up like I was there for 4 years as a writer's assistant, and
That's awesome.
ended up writing an episode of that.
Oh wait, you wrote an episode of Dawson.
Yeah.
It wasn't the one where Pacey's dad died, or Dawson's dad died, was it?
No,
God, that was
it was
brutal.
literally one of the most forgettable episodes. It was like the 5th from last one. Love Lines came. It was like a standalone episode, and it was kind of comedic because I knew I wanted to do comedy.
Yeah.
and they kind of knew I wanted to, and then so they let me write kind of a more comedic episode, and
My high school girlfriend was obsessed with that show. For what it's worth.
a lot of people. It was to this day, it's probably the most like obsessed show I've worked on, and
Yeah, all those kids were so hot. You know what I mean?
So Dawson's Creek had like a very popular website, and it was like one of the first like show related websites. It was like very innovative, and it was interactive. Like you could go on Dawson's computer on the website and look at his homework and stuff like that. It was like a big thing. And I had a column on there called Ask Jason, where people would write in, and it was a very popular like column. So I would write that, and then
That's cool.
Yeah, it was fun, and it was interesting working on. I've never worked on a show like that where it was like a rabid fan base. Like you'd show up to work, it was a big. There was the fans who wanted Pacey and Dawson to be together, the fans who wanted. I'm sorry,
Not Dawson. Well, there probably were fans that wanted that. Too.
Yeah, Joey and Dawson, and then Pacey and Dawson.
I was Team Pacey.
And you'd come, I'd say most people. And then you'd come to work, and there'd be like flowers on your desk, like from someone who'd be like, "Please get Pacey and Joey." Yeah, you'd get like gifts at work, and
That's crazy.
Yeah, you would get like. So they would send me like emails that I would have to work, and I'd get like 1,000 emails a week, sometimes more, and I'd get like marriage proposals. It was this crazy show to work.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and then
Wow. Wait. So sorry. When you said I wrote a spec script, and then did you submit the spec script to all these places to get a job? Is that how you got the job on Dawson's Creek? Was because of your spec script?
no,
Or just your resume.
I just from a resume got
Got it. Okay.
I actually, now I'm remembering, I interviewed for that PA job 1 year, and I didn't get it.
The Dawson's Creek one?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
So my first year out of college, I wasn't working, and then and then they brought me in again. They remembered me, brought me in again the second year, and I got hired.
And did they know you had intentions to write?
Yeah,
Okay.
they did.
Because usually I feel like that would be an incentive for them to bring you in, right? Yeah. Because you want to move up.
I don't know, but I don't know if that makes a difference with a PA. So I was a PA there for 1 year, and I let them know, I'd love to be a writer assistant. I went on my way to learn that job, and the writer assistant left the next year, and I got that job, and then I was always I would write spec scripts and showing them to them, and then the final year there, I don't even remember. I think I pitched this idea, and then they ended up letting me write it. I don't know if a lot of people know this, but I think it's still this way. But every show they have to give out 2 freelance scripts a year.
Okay.
I don't know if everyone knows that. It's like a Writers Guild rule to help bring in new people.
Yeah.
You have to give 2 freelance scripts a year. Very often it will go to the writer's assistants if they think you're competent, And then, they gave me one of those to write, and then I got an agent from that.
Oh,
and
shit.
Then, and then...
Wait, back to the Dawson and Pacey thing. Were you guys... I find that shows that have a plan from the beginning and stick with it aren't the best ending shows. Did you guys talk about how it should end regularly, or did you know how it was going to end? I'm just curious. I don't remember exactly how it ended.
I don't think. If I remember right, it was a long time ago now. No, I don't think they knew how it was going to end.
That's good.
No,
I think that's better.
I don't think they planned that show out much.
That's good, I think.
You think? I think
because then you can hear what the fans like, and you can see that chemistry and stuff. You can like adapt to with what's happening on the screen.
I think no. If I remember right, no. I don't think they really knew how it was going to end until probably I don't know,
a week before.
I think there was, if I remember right, I think there was a big debate of who Joey should end up with.
Right. Yeah.
She ended. Well, I don't want to ruin it for people.
I forget. Did she ended up with Pacey?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
And then, yeah. And I think there was a big debate about that. I think most of the writers were pro Pacey people. And
whoa, this is breaking news.
and
but you got a rep from that. That's pretty cool. I find though that it's interesting. The rep. Did you try to get a rep before you were in the writers' room? And did you have any luck with that? Because it seems like from the writers I've interviewed on here, reps don't want you until you're already on a show, and you're why? Yeah. Well, how are you helping me then if I already got the gig without you?
I think I did. I had some spec scripts, and I wrote a Curb Your Enthusiasm spec that got like 3rd place in this competition.
Oh, awesome!
And then I remember some agents read it from that, but I didn't. And the rep I got after writing my Dawson's Creek was not a high, well known. It was like a tiny agency. And I'll say this right now, I've made my living writing for 20 years. I've never gotten one piece of work from an agent or manager.
Are you serious?
Never.
That's hilarious. Do you see? I have that question. More work from reps? ? Because I feel
never.
A lot of writers don't get work from
I've
reps.
never gotten one job, and they've taken, they've taken.
How much have they taken?
They've taken 10% of everything. And I'll tell you, I was at I'll put APA on blast. I was at APA, and I was working this job. Are We There Yet? It was those Ice Cube shows, movies. Are We There Yet?
It sounds
like
familiar.
family show. They're like family movies. I think there's 2 or 3 of them.
Okay.
I think there's 2. And they made them into TV shows for TBS starring Terry Crews.
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I went and I got that job on my own because anyway, I got that job on my own, and I was at APA, and it was a good job, and they took like 10% of everything, and then like 6 months after that show ended, after they took like 50% of everything I made, and I made good money on that show. Or
50%?
I'm sorry, 10%.
Oh, I was gonna say, geez.
It might have even been. And then my agent left, and then they just dropped me. They never did a fucking thing for me, man.
That's infuriating.
They took 10% of everything I made.
That's infuriating.
And they
because writing's such a networking thing, and it's like, what are they supposed to do? Like, do you have reps right now?
No, I have no reps right now. No.
Well, what would they take? What could they take? Is your salary not WGA, I guess? But
it's funny. So the first staffing job I got was on Everybody Hates Chris. Mm-hmm. I was the writer's assistant on that show, and
wait. Oh, because you technically weren't a staff writer on Dawson's. You were still...
Right.
Okay, got it.
I was the writer's assistant, and I wrote a freelance episode.
Okay.
And then I was like writer's assistant on That's So Raven. I wrote an episode of that, and I was like writer's assistant on Bernie Mac's show, and got a story credit on there. And then I was working on Everybody Hates Chris, and I was always they would do joke passes, and I was always pitching a lot of jokes to Ali Leroy, the executive producer. He's the one who gave me my first break, and then they were using a lot of my jokes, and then I was always pitching them ideas, and then I finally pitched an idea they liked, and they let me write it, and it turned out pretty well, and then they ended up staffing me on that show. And then...
so you were a writer's assistant first on that show? And then,
yeah.
And then you became staffed on it?
Yes.
In the second season?
I think it was the 4th season. Fourth and final season.
So you were a writer's assistant for a long time.
8 years.
But you still managed to get 3 or 4 episodes out of that, which is pretty cool.
I think I had... I'd written 4 episodes of TV as a writer's assistant.
So you're doing pretty well. Let me ask you, what was the impetus then to jump into improv? Like, suddenly, I know you got into UCB and you did the Groundlings you mentioned. What was the reasoning for that?
I'll tell you. I was working on the Bernie Mac show. And, you're in the writer's room, and there was this, I'll tell you, improv always interested me. I remember reading an article, this is 2000, I think, about the Groundlings, and I didn't even know what the Groundlings was, and I just, I remember reading an article in the LA Times, the physical paper. It was like, I'm going to go check this place out. So I called them. And they're like, oh, yeah, you got to come in for an audition. And then we see what class you should take. I didn't know what improv was at all. Like, I'd never been to an improv show. I didn't even understand what it was. I didn't know what this audition entailed. I had never really acted.
Yeah, you'd never auditioned for anything, probably.
No. I mean, I acted in that Carolina City thing, and acting always kind of interested me, but I never pursued it. So, you've done improv and stuff, right?
Oh, yeah, I did.
Have you ever done Groundlings stuff?
Not Groundlings. I did used to be IO.
So at Groundlings, they make you do like a little audition, like with a bunch of people, and then it's mostly to see, should we start you in our level 1 class, or do you need the remedial class?
Right.
And there's 2 remedial classes, like improv A, improv B. So I went to this class, there's 20 people, and I have no stage experience at all. It was like a play in the 4th grade, and then they're having us do these exercises, and you could tell, I'm like, these fucking people are like good. Like, I'm like, I don't even know. And then they were like, okay, we're all going to get on stage, and each one of you is going to improvise a monologue. And I'm like, what? I'm like, and some of these people are getting up, and so a lot of these people have a lot of experience.
Yeah.
Some people are getting up, and they're like amazing. I'm like literally sweating bullets. And like, I remember this like 60-year-old woman got up there, and she was like good, and I was like, and in my head I thought I was like a funny person. I got up there, and I remember the guy goes, "You're the most popular guy back at your high. You were the most popular guy in high school, and you're back at your 10-year reunion. Go!" I was literally like sweating, and I remember being on stage in front of and being like, "Hey," and I go, "I can't do this."
Oh, shit.
I know. And the guy running the audition goes, no, you could do it. Just like picture stuff around you. I remember I was literally like switch, and I was
Flop sweat.
I was like, I can't do this. And I was so mortified. And he goes, all right, sit back down. I remember I left the audition. I think I might have like cried on the way home. I was so like ashamed that I couldn't do this thing.
Usually that happens to actors 5 or 10 years in. You cried after your first audition.
Yeah. And then I remember I used to love watching Saturday Night Live. I didn't watch Saturday Night Live for like years because all I could think of was my failure when I would see these people.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they sent me like a letter. I think they're still like, again, no one's using the email quite. I mean, I think it was like a letter I got in the mail. Like, you've qualified for level B, which is like the remedial. And I was so ashamed. I'm like, I'm not. I just shut it out of my head. I ended up eventually getting into Sunday company at Groundlings.
That's
like
amazing.
10 years later.
Amazing.
Yeah, it is kind of cool.
So did you take the B class or did you avoid it for a while? Because
I was like, I had too much pride. I was like, I'm not taking B. So like 5 years went by. I was like, I'm just going to focus on writing. And I was a writer assistant on the Bernie Mac show. And there's this great writer, Jerry Collins. And I remember, they'd be punching up scripts in the room. And this Jerry guy would be like, before anyone would have one joke, he would have like 8 jokes. He'd be like, da 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 da. And he was just so impressive. He's like, this guy Jerry, he was in the Groundlings. He was like Will Ferrell's best man him and Will Ferrell started Groundlings together. And they're very.
Started Groundlings?
Yeah, together. Like
Will Ferrell started Groundlings?
No, they started in the Groundlings together.
Got it. I was going to say, got it.
And then I don't know what he's doing now, but he's an amazing writer. And then I asked him one day, I was like, in the back of my head, I still wanted to give improv a try. And then I asked him, I was like, hey, Jerry, I was like, how are you so quick, man? I was like, how you have like 8 jokes for anyone that has like 1? He goes, oh, it's my improv training. He's like, yeah. He's like, I was at Groundlings. He was in Sunday company, and he was like, you should take it. He's like, you should take improv. He's like, you'd be good. And he's like, and it'll really help your writing.
Yeah. So this was after your failed audition?
5 years after.
Oh, funny.
And then,
funny.
So I was like, all right, I'm going to give this another try.
Did you tell him about your failed audition?
I don't know if I told him. And then so then I started auditing some improv classes. Like I audited IO West, and I remember I was at IO West, and it was very like actory and very competitive, and I was like, this isn't for me. And then I didn't want to go back to Groundlings again. And then so I went. There was this place that was run by someone who used to be a director at the Groundlings, Stan Wells. It was called Empty Stage, and it was in West LA. It's gone now. It was like small, and I felt comfortable there, so I started doing improv there. And it was like a small place, so it suited me. And then, yeah, it did. That's the best thing I did for my writing. It really.
I was going to say, I figured you did it to work on your writing, and that's cool.
That's mostly why I did it. Yeah.
That's cool that you saw how it helped writing to do that. That's really cool.
I saw like immediately how, and when people ask me, like sometimes like, hey, what can I do? I always say, to be a better writer, I always say like take improv classes.
Yeah.
Especially in a writer's room. Like you could tell the people who have like improv experience, because people have improv experience, you'll be reading a script and they'll have like, because they're just used to responding to the last thing said.
Yeah.
And you could tell people don't have improv experience because they'll be like, yeah. And then like, so yeah, I started doing it from there. Then eventually started taking classes at UCB in like 2010. And then,
early UCB.
Is that early? I feel like
they moved out here like 08 or 09.
Well, when I first started auditing improv classes, they literally just started. Because I remember someone said to me, you should check out Upright Citizen Brigade. They just opened.
Yeah.
And I think this was like 2005. But I never did. And then the place I was at shut down, so I needed to find another place. So I eventually started taking UCB classes, and then eventually I started taking Groundlings classes too.
So how quickly did you get past sort of your collapse audition? Like at what was it called? The West LA one? What was it called?
Empty Stage.
Empty Stage. Immediately were you like, I'm just going to go for it, or did you start pretty timid?
I'd say it took me like 10 years.
Oh, really?
Oh my God. I have the worst stage fright. Like even after doing improv, like when I was in Sunday Company, I've been doing improv for over 10 years, and I would still like have like almost panic attacks.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
I have like bad. I got over it a lot, but I still, I would be like. So the very first time I had to do an improv show at Empty Stage, it was a 5-minute improv show. We were opening for like the main act. They let us go on for 5 minutes, and there's like 12 of us. So you're lucky if you get like one line in this 5-minute improv show. I remember I had so much anxiety about it. I went to my doctor to get Xanax.
Oh, gee.
I remember taking a Xanax before I went on stage, and they introduced us to go on stage for a 5-minute improv show. And I remember I almost fucking turned around.
Oh, no.
Still to this day, I have a lot of stage fright.
Have you figured out a way to like manage it? Do you, I had an acting teacher that once said you got to figure out how your nerves manifest, and then once you know how they manifest, stage fright or whatever, sweaty or dry mouth or whatever, you do steps to alleviate that. Did you ever like find a way? No, you just embrace the chaos.
I would take like, there was a long time I remember I would take Xanax before each show. Jeez. And then I was in the Sunday Company, and you'd perform to like pretty much a sold out house and after 6 months of doing that, about month 6, I for the first time in my life started feeling comfortable on stage.
Yeah.
Like I remember like I got cut after 6 months at Groundlings. But I remember about the 6th month being like, for the first time in my life, I'm like kind of not that nervous.
Yeah.
And then I got cut from Groundlings, and COVID hit, and so I haven't been doing much performing in the last like 4 years. So if I had to start performing again, I'd probably be very nervous again.
For what it's worth, like I think a lot of people are that way. Like I've had some really good improvisers like yourself on that are still scared of it. And even me, I can speak for myself. Like I don't do well with anticipation. Mm-hmm. Like once I get on stage, I'm great. But just like waiting and the unknown frightens me. Even before, like if I'm waiting for you to come do this podcast, I'm sitting here like, oh God, whoa, boy, God, what's going on?
My fear is just also, I have nothing to say. When we were doing sketches at Groundlings, I just had the worst fear that I'm going to forget everything. And then, it just goes away, I think, with just doing it, right?
Yeah.
But I was listening to that Fly on the Wall podcast lately. It's Dana Carvey and David Spade.
Yeah.
And then I remember Jason Sudeikis was on there, and they were like, he was telling about him, and they were like, were you ever nervous on stage? He's like, nope, never. They're like, not even when you started out? He was like, no, I never had stage fright at all.
Wow.
I'm just like, yeah. So I've met people, I've met a lot of experienced people who are like, I still get super nervous. But then I've met people who are like, no, I never get nervous.
Yeah. What did you win an Emmy for? You won an Emmy, right?
Yeah, our show won for Best Weekly Sports Show.
Oh, Fox NFL Sunday.
Yeah, and it was a pretty big thing because they hadn't won since 2001.
That's exciting.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was exciting because I feel like I played a big part in it. I feel like our comedy sketches are get that show a lot of attention. And
wait, what's your official title?
I'm a feature producer and senior writer there.
Okay,
and then that ESPN College Game Day usually wins, popular show, and that NBA on TNT had won 3 years in a row.
That makes sense, yeah.
And I don't think people were expecting us to win, and so when we won, it was like a big deal. That's a popular show. It's the number one NFL pregame show by a lot.
It's by far the best.
Yeah, it beats CBS's by a lot. It beats ESPN's by a lot. And
what year did you win the Emmy?
Just this year.
Oh, amazing! That's
won
awesome.
it I don't know, 4 months ago. And I just got the trophy a few weeks ago.
Oh, hell yeah!
Yeah.
Where's it at?
It's on a shelf in my house.
A shelf.
It was. They give you a really nice box for it. It was in this this satin lined box, and I kept it in the box for a while, and I finally put it. I just finally put it on a shelf. But yeah, that was pretty cool. I it was fun because that's a very popular show, but they hadn't won that Emmy, and 2001 was the last time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
If you met a writer that was moving out here, fresh off the boat from Diamond Bar or wherever, what would your advice be at this point? You've had such a diverse career, it seems like now at this point, and a steady career.
A little bit, yeah.
What would your advice be? Just your main key
if you want to
advice.
be like a comedy writer?
Sure, yeah.
Honestly, my main advice would be, well, one, you always got to be writing. So you got to write. You got to write. But honestly, my advice would be to take improv classes. Yeah. That would, and just not only, you just learn. Yeah, I would say take improv classes, but then, through improv, you just meet this comedy community and you make a lot of connections that way.
Yep.
And, I meet a lot of people who want to be writers, and they always ask me that question. That's what I say. I say, take an improv class.
Yeah.
And then a lot of them are like, oh, no, I don't want to act. And I'll be like, it's not about whether you want to act. It's just about just training your brain to listen. Before I started taking improv, I was always like, I wouldn't listen to improv. They tell you respond to the last thing said.
Yeah.
And I learned to do that writing, where before I'd be thinking 10 steps ahead. What happens here? What happens there? And all you got to do is just, what was the last thing said, and respond to that.
It's helpful for acting too, because acting or new actors, I see a lot of this where it's like they memorize their lines and then they're just saying their lines. They're not responding with their line to the last thing said.
Yeah.
And I think it helps a lot with acting too, obviously.
Yeah, you could tell when actors are not really listening and responding. They're just kind of
waiting for their turn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you ever take any sketch writing classes at any of these places?
I did. I took a lot.
Okay.
I took what's funny is I took I think it was 2011. I was working on that Ice Cube show, that Are We There Yet show. We were in Stamford, Connecticut.
Okay.
And they paid the writers to move out there for a year because Connecticut was offering these tax breaks, and so the production company wanted to film it out there and save on all these taxes. And then they took a storage facility that was for the WWE, and they made it into a sound stage because there was no sound stage. Connecticut was trying to get entertainment out there. They had just built a media center for Jerry Springer and Steve Wilkos.
Okay.
So I moved out there for a year, and Stanford's 40-minute train ride from the city. And so I took my first sketch writing class at UCB in New York.
Awesome.
So it's funny. I took a sketch writing 101. It's just funny how stuff comes full circle. Sketch writing 101 class out there. And then the guy who was my teacher was last week in one of our sketches.
Oh, who was it?
Dan Klein.
Oh, sure. Okay.
And I wasn't even sure. That was 12 years ago. I was like, Norm, who does those Fox 45s, he's like, I'm casting this guy Dan Klein. And I was like, I think I took a sketch writing class from that guy. So we both filmed our sketches on the same lot Friday. So I met Dan and I was like, hey, did you teach a UCB class in sketch class in like 2011? He's like, yeah. I was like, I took your class.
That's so cool.
It was interesting, like stuff had come such full circle. I was taking this guy's sketch class, just learning sketch, and now I was like helping write stuff that he's in.
Do you know Will Hines from UCB?
Yes, not super well, but yes.
I just had him do the podcast, and he said most of his TV credits have come from former students that are writers now, and put him in their shows. And I was like, that's really cool.
I reached out to Will a couple times to be in some of these sketches. It just never worked out. Yeah, and
yeah, that's got to be really satisfying for Dan to have that full circle moment.
Yeah, the thing I love the most is like, I was working on TV shows while I was doing improv, but I never really had a say in casting, and so you'd work with these improvisers, you'd see them, and you'd be like guys like Will Hines, you see this guy and be like, God, this guy's great. Like, I wish I was in a position to like cast this guy.
Yeah.
And now I am in that position. I get to cast all these things. So that's like one of the most gratifying parts of my job is being able to like work and cast with like people like you've like watched on stage.
Respect,
like,
yeah.
It's fun. There's a lot of like very talented people who I've cast, and they've been like, "This is my first time on TV."
That's really cool.
So yeah, it's really gratifying to be able to like give people that opportunity.
Hell yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's fun. Like we did that sketch we did last week, and so we had 8 actors and 17 background people, and I hire even the background people as people.
Oh,
I know.
Cool! That's awesome.
Yeah, and so they're fun shoots because it's like all these actors are not just random actors.
Right, yeah.
I don't, a lot of these things, it's like 1 or 2 lines, and so we don't cast them. Sometimes I'll have people audition. If it's like a bigger role and I'm not sure who'd be best for it. But most of these times I just reach out to people I know.
Yeah. Like Carl Tart was in it?
Yes.
He just did the podcast a couple weeks ago.
Oh, awesome. And then, yeah, and so it's fun. These sets are a lot of fun. Sometimes they're too much fun. Like you're like, okay, everyone needs to like focus.
Calm down.
Yeah, and so it's a lot of fun. It's like all these actors that you're friends with, and yeah, it's fun.
That's very cool. What a gig!
Yeah.
I got one more question for you.
Yeah.
It's who took a chance on you?
Ali Leroy, I would say. If there's a couple people, but. Ali Leroy, he's the creator of Everybody Hates Chris, and he was a writer producer on the Chris Rock show, his talk show. He was the guy I would credit for like believing in me, like, and he gave me my first staff writing job. Tom Capanos on Dawson's Creek was very. When I was just starting out, he was very encouraging. He gave me my first script on in television. So I would say those 2 guys. Ali Leroy, I would say I owe him a lot. He really like helped jumpstart my career.
That's super cool. Have you told him that?
I think so. It's funny is he.
Well, he knows now.
So I was a writer's assistant on Everybody Hates Chris, and he always tells a story and. I am not the fastest typer. There's a lot that goes into being a writer's assistant other than taking notes in the room. You got to format the scripts and proof them. And like, I'm not the fastest typer. I was up for the writer's assistant job on Friends.
Oh, shit.
And I didn't get it because they have you do a typing test. And my typing was too...
You were like 40 words per second.
Yeah. Like, if I was on a good day, I was like 50 words. And they wanted 100.
Damn.
And had a really good interview, went well, and they were like, your typing is just too slow. And I knew it was. I 2-finger type and look.
Yeah.
I had a typing class in high school, and I cheated, and it's one of the biggest mistakes of my life. Because it hindered my life.
Yeah.
Because I really needed typing when I was a writer's assistant.
Don't cheat, kids.
And then, so when I interviewed for this writer's assistant job, like somebody referred me to it from Bernie Mac on this Everybody Hates Chris. I was interviewing with Ali Roy. I was like, I'm going to be honest. I was like, I'm great at all this stuff. The one thing, I was like, I'm not a fast typer. And he was like, go sit in the room and get a feel for the room. He's like, and tell me if you think you could do it. So I went and sat in this room. Chris Rock was in there. It was weird. Sat in this room just for like an hour. And the room worked very slow. I've been in rooms where it's like light. This room was
chill.
Everyone's like bullshitting and telling jokes. And then they go back to the script for 5 minutes. Then I was like, oh, I could handle that.
Yeah.
So then they hired me to do it. And I'm a bad typer. And so like there's a lot of mistakes I'd go through. And it would annoy a lot of the writers there.
Oh, man.
And then, and it annoyed Ali Leroy sometimes. But, like I said, I was pitching a lot of jokes. I used a lot of my jokes, so he saw my value there. And then, so he tells a story. He's like, he'll tell people, he goes, the only reason I made Jason a writer is because he was a terrible writer's assistant. He's like, so I had to make him a writer.
That's funny.
But I didn't think I was a terrible writer, but that's his story. But
that's funny. Do you ever think about what would have happened if you got the writer's assistant gig on Friends? Not until now. You had
Well, I'll tell you if you have time for another story. So I was a writer's assistant on the Bernie Mac show, and that had ended, and I was looking for another writer assistant job, and I got offered 2 jobs on the very same day. I got offered the one at Everybody Hates Chris, and then I got offered the script coordinating job on this J.J. Abrams show. It was called What About Brian, I think.
Okay.
It's like a drama.
Okay.
What About Brian? Something like that it was called. I think it lasted like half a season. And someone I knew was a writer on that. I hated being in the writer's room. It was fun, but I was a terrible typist, and that caused me a lot of anxiety because they'd be talking and I'd be like, and script coordinator job on this hour-long show, you just proof and put together scripts. You don't have to be in the writer's room. That was an easier job for me, but I didn't want to do dramas, and so it's literally I had a choice between these 2 jobs on the same day. And I remember calling Saladin Patterson. I don't know if you know him. He's like a big writer, and I was like, what job do you think I should take? And he was like, you should take. He's like, you want to work in comedies, or you should take that Chris Rock job. So I did, and the first week, that writer's room was brutal. And that Ali Leroy said to me, he's like, I'm just going to let you know. He's like, you got to have a thick skin. He's like, it's filled with comedians. Right. He's like, they love to bust people's chops. Roasting, he's like, if you don't have he's like, thick skin. He's like, and these guys were brutal on me. It was so stressful that I think I cried again.
Oh, no.
So this is the truth. I remember the first week telling the other writer assistant, Aisha Carr, who's now like, she's like a writer. She was like a writer on Brooklyn Nine-Nine. I was like, I don't think I could do this job. And she's like, no, you could do it. She's like, you could do it. It gets easier. She's like, they're giving you a hard time. I remember the first week, on my break, I went out behind the soundstage and I was crying because they were giving me such a hard time. And it was like, these people are my friends now,
Poor
but
little Jason.
It was like bullying.
Oh, I'm
and
sorry.
I was like, I remember went and crying, and I got on my phone and I called that J.J. Abrams show.
Oh.
And I go, is that position still open?
No chance.
I know. And they were like, and they went, no. They're like, I'm sorry, we filled it. So I stuck it out at the show, and that show ended up being the best thing that ever happened to me because I eventually getting staffed on that show. It did. It changed. They were busting my chops. Everyone there became nice to me after. But
of course. So the story is don't second guess your decisions. Just pick one and go. And right.
I guess. I think I don't know what the story is, to be honest. I guess just like follow your instincts. Like my gut was telling me this is where you should be. You want to do comedy. Don't look for the easy route, I guess would be, which is kind of what I was doing.
Jason, this was a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming down and chatting.
Yeah, thank you.
It does go fast, right?
Yeah, very fast.
Cool.
But thank you. Thanks for having me. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, my pleasure. You get a tail slate now. You get to do it again.
Hi, my name is Jason Palmer. Is that what I'm supposed to be doing?
Yeah, that was so enthusiastic.
MTV and the Channel E. A thing for celebrity.
Yeah, they would want you to do that, but I never really did.